Today's session is very exciting because we are talking about demystifying the government panel process. Now, we at QSEC, if you haven't met us before, and I know there are a lot of non-members who are joining us today, we are a member-driven organisation. So we exist to serve social enterprise members, and we do that through connecting and supporting. We have an online learning centre, so we're all about skills development. We're all about networking, community, building relationships, and also advocating on behalf of social enterprises. After this session, there will be a recording. If you do want to learn more about talking to government, relating to government, applying to government, we do have courses for our members sitting in our online learning centre. So we've got a big online learning centre sitting in Go One, and these are two of the courses that we have. First one, Social Procurement Fundamentals and Certification for Social Enterprises in Queensland. That's an excellent course by Alex and his team at Social Traders. And the other one by Wide Bay, Nathan up at Wide Bay, did a tender writing kit and lots of PDFs and downloads. So that's really some great resources that we have available that you can go to after this, but the recording of this will also be available. Now, we do have some events coming up. So for those in the Logan area, we've got the Social Enterprise Industry Forum on the 18th. We've got in Brisbane, Social Enterprise Drinks, so next Tuesday night. On the 26th, we've got our next online learning for QSEC, so it's our active learning lunch, storytelling masterclass, QSEC stories. And if you haven't had a tour of the QSEC website yet, so events, the online learning centre, resources, regions, we do that after that session, so I'll run that. And then also that night, if you're up in Townsville, you can go to the Social Enterprise Activation, which is very exciting. But all of our events are on the events page. So many people coming in today. Now, if you're not a member and you would like to join, because why wouldn't you? Because we're lovely people. You can join using the discount code QSEC_friends, and that will give you 50% off your first year of joining. Okay, so our memberships are anything from $50 to $300. Chuck in that code if you've never been a member before, and you can get half price off your first year membership, which is pretty cool. If you need any help, you can talk to me and I'll help you through. It's all good. So that's us. I'm going to hand over now. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I'm going to hand over now to Andrew and Alex and Brigid, and who else is here? And Thomas as well, a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to learn all about demystifying the government panel process, or we're going to try. Fingers crossed, we're going to try and demystify it. So, Alex, I'm going to hand over to you, my love.
Great. Thank you for the intro. And great to see so much interest in working with government and government panels. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We're just going to have, we'd like this to be a workshop. I can see in the list of people here, there's some amazing insights around the room, not just from the great panel that have come together. So feel free to drop your questions into chat and to put your hand up and to say hello if people are speaking in jargon or things that you don't understand. As Leanne said, we're here to demystify, and hopefully we can do that by telling some stories about what has worked for each of our organisations and what we kind of see in the work that we do, and we're all kind of approaching this in slightly different ways. So for those that don't know me, we'll do a bit of intro of the few people that are up here on the panel, and then we'll go around the room to hear their stories and their experience with government panels. But yeah, for those that don't know me, the last few years have been the social procurement lead for Queensland with Social Traders. So work with social enterprises to help them get certified, and then look for opportunities for them to work more with our business and government customers, and work with government as a client, both local and state government. And for the last couple of years have been engaged with Queensland Government Procurement, so I can tell you a bit more about the work we do there. But I might just hand over to Andrew to introduce himself, and then Brigid, and then briefly Thomas as well from GovReady.
Hi everyone, my name's Andrew Hamilton. I'm from Social Scaffolding, and organisation's been going for about 7 years, and we recently became certified as a social enterprise, not because it took me 7 years to do something good, but 7 years to realise the importance of it, and that's probably some of the learnings that I can share on the call today.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. My name is Brigid.fleming. I manage the Brisbane branch of a national recruitment agency, IPA. We are also a certified social enterprise, and we do a lot of work with state government through a panel. So we'll hopefully have some insight to be able to share with you all today.
Thanks, Bridge. And not on the program, but we'll just throw to you briefly, Thomas, to introduce yourself, and good to have your insights and availability to answer questions today as well.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. Tom Pollock, founder of GovReady, 20 years experience in the private sector, winning government contracts and getting onto panels. And yeah, I've been invited just to maybe throw in a bit of experience throughout the next hour. So looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Thomas. And I think some of a big impetus for today's session was Andrew, your recent experience in joining a panel. So we might start with you, and if you can tell the room what your experience was and a bit about how it worked for you, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the organisation started 7 years ago, and before that I worked for a couple of big not-for-profits, and before that I worked for Social Ventures Australia. So I was very familiar with what a social enterprise is and what its purpose is, and also its positioning in the market. So let me probably come from the market perspective. So when I started Social Scaffolding 7 years ago, it had always been very purpose-driven, and basically my elevator pitch is we help not-for-profits and social enterprise grow bigger, quicker. It's as simple as that. So our work has always been, focused on a social outcome, but I'd never actually considered the organisation as a social enterprise for a range of different reasons. But then there's been such significant interest and momentum around social enterprises and social procurement, thanks to the work of QSEC, which has been going for obviously a number of years, and Social Traders, which has had massive influence in Victoria, and now they've got a national reach. I did a little bit for more investigation and essentially did some market research, compared myself against other organisations in the market that were and weren't social enterprises, and spoke to a number of them. So basically did some research. And I thought my organisation would be well positioned as a social enterprise. And then to go through the process, I obviously wanted to make sure that we ticked all the boxes and were compliant with what's considered a social enterprise. And I knew we were, but I wanted to make sure before I went down that path. And so the end result has been getting certified by Social Traders, being certified by QSEC. I'm actually going through the B Corp process, which is rigorous as well. They've just got a bit of a lag in terms of their approval process because so many organisations are applying for it. But then ultimately have been approved on a government panel. And my experience in that whole process, so those 4 different things, has been extremely positive. And why I didn't do it 7 years ago was I thought I needed more work to be done. I thought it would take a really long time. I was busy growing the business, et cetera, et cetera. So I just put it in the too hard basket for 7 years, which does sound ridiculous when you say it out aloud. But then I thought if I could share my experience with others and they might not wait 7 years to do it, I think that would be beneficial. So what I thought I'd do is, I love slides. So I thought if I put together some slides and give you a sense of what that actual process looked like, really just in thinking as I went through it. Right, can you see? Oh, I'll just double check if you can still see me move this out of the way. So can you see my shared screen? I do actually have participants can now see this. Yep, you can. Great.
We can see that slide.
Yep. A little thing keeps flashing up on my screen saying the internet connection is unstable. So I might make it so that I can see Alex. And Alex, you wave if suddenly I'm talking and my video off, then that's I might just stop my video. So you can still see my screen even though I've stopped my video. Give me a thumbs up. Yep, the nod. Okay, excellent. Okay. So the process I went through was working out what's a possible target for me. So the thinking was, is government a good market for my products? And initially I thought no. So I'm a consulting firm. I have half a dozen people with a range of different skills, and we do strategy, governance, implementation. And I thought, okay, well, is a government panel a good target for our products and services? Initially, I thought no. I did some market research. I discovered that a number of organisations similar to myself were on government panels, and they were getting business. And I thought, okay, excellent, that's great. So for yourselves, that's the first point of call. Is it worth going through this process to become a provider on a government panel? But then bearing in mind, once you're on a government panel, A, it's good for your market positioning, and B, any government can buy off you. Local council, state government, I assume federal, although I shouldn't make assumptions, but it's a good tick in the box for your business. So then I thought, okay, what panels are open at the moment? What panels are relevant to what I'm selling? And then obviously that statement around any government can buy from you. So what panels are open? That's part of the challenge. Is they are closed really from anywhere between 3 and 5 years, but they do go out to market if they want to refresh. They do go out to market if they've got a shortage of suppliers. Obviously they do open after every sort of 3 to 5 years. In my ignorance, I don't know what happens with a change of government, if some of those panels get a refresh or a review. But basically I went to a couple of tender sites to see what was open. And lo and behold, there was one that was open, which is actually not particularly relevant to what we do. I could tick the box of about 6 different things out of 100. But then I've been quite proactive in terms of speaking to a number of the buyers on the panel. So I'll get to that as well. So it's all about timing. And for me, I was fortunate enough that it was good timing. To get on the panel, you don't have to be a social enterprise, but they are looking for social enterprises. And I'm sure Alex will talk to that in a bit more detail, where there's a real impetus for local and state governments to buy from local businesses, small businesses, and social enterprises. So I happen to tick the box on all 3 of those. So for me, it was like, great, get certified. The social traders process, let me just give you a brief snapshot of that. That was a really positive experience. I've got some forms online to fill in to make sure that you meet their initial expectations. They then do a couple of interviews with you, and you send some additional information. A really positive experience. So I'd encourage you to even look at that even if you're not looking at the panel process, because once you get social traders certified, again, it's a good tick in the box. The B Corp process was there's not a lot of support, I guess. It's all online. It's quite rigorous. If you stuff it up in the start, which I did, there's quite a slow process for them to get back to you. And you know, I certainly don't want to bag the whole B Corp process, but there's been some recent publicity around why X, Y, and Z organisations have become B Corp. So it's really diluted the brand, if you want to think of it in that respect. So I think probably watch that space. And then the business development side, I'm assuming it's public information. One of the contacts I had in government, who was very helpful and very encouraging around applying for this government panel, then sent me the list of procurement buyers across all of the state government departments, of which there's about 40. And I said, can I email them all? Can I CC you in, say that you gave me your details? And he said, yep, absolutely. So then I've sent them a profile of my business or why we're a social enterprise, why buying from a social enterprise is a government target, and can I have a chat? So of those 40 that I've approached, I've now spoken to about 10. I'd love to say I've reached my $1 million budget from government procurement. That hasn't happened, but I'm on the panels. That whole business development piece is really important because you need to maintain those relationships so that you are front of mind. And through the process, as I mentioned, it's a good tick in the box. I tell a whole range of existing clients and prospects that I'm now social trader certified, I'm QSEC certified, I'm on government panel arrangements. The QSEC social enterprise certification process, again, was very well informed and supported by Leanne and Elise. And again, it's another great tick in the box as QSEC's momentum and reputation goes from strength to strength, certainly with the Social Enterprise World Forum. And in fact, that was another key focus for me with the World Forum coming to Brisbane in, 8 weeks time or something. It was a good impetus to get certified in time for that World Forum because, we're going to have an international representation. So it's great for more and more Brisbane organisations to reach that certification if they're eligible.
Hey, Andrew, can I just jump in there and just for a point of clarity, I know Alex will love me when I say this. We don't certify. Alex certifies, but we do put people through a little bit through their paces to make sure that we've got social enterprises verified.
Members, yes.
Members,
yes.
Verified member process. So yes, just wanted to clarify. Thanks, Alex. Love you.
Thanks. And following on from that, Elise, Leanne has put the link into the QSEC website with more information about social traders, and for QSEC members, the first year of certification is waived. So if you're a QSEC member, you can access social traders through that. And so another good reason to be a member and be certified.
So really that's all hopefully people have got some questions, but that's really what I wanted to illustrate is the process was definitely not arduous. If you've got all your records and all your financials, I've kept track of a lot of the work that we've done over that period of time. And yeah, it's been quite rewarding to reflect on it back and go, yeah, great, certified and a member, certified by social traders and a member of QSEC. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah, great. And so, I'm hearing the message, Andrew, is just go for it. For those that see government as a target customer, with a bit of desktop research and a bit of help from some contacts, you've been able to get your certification from social traders, and you've been able to secure a spot on at least one panel with an eye open for others as they refresh.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the key message is just go for it. I literally put it off for a ridiculously long period of time thinking it was arduous, and it's not at all.
Yeah, nice. Great message. Thank you. And I had planned to throw to Brigid, but before we do, we might just have a little intermission. Thomas, are you able to explain to us what a government panel is and what GovReady have been specialising in?
Yep, sure, absolutely. So your panel arrangement, effectively, they're pre-qualifiers for government. So when the government department goes out to tender, or it basically means they don't have to go out to tender, and that's a really expensive cost. And they can basically go to, if a panel arrangement's being set up, they can actually go to that panel, look for the suppliers on that panel, and engage directly with those any supplier on that panel arrangement without having to go out to market and go through a bunch of tendering process and et cetera, et cetera. So when you go through that panel application process that Andrew was speaking about, all your financials, all your vetting, all of your testimonials, your evidence, everything you do, all your pricing, that's all put up front. They'll vet that. They'll then deem whether or not you're good to go. And then once you're on that panel arrangement, any government department and federal as well can then engage you without having to jump through all the hoops of actually going to market and going through that formal tender process. 2 bits of advice that I can offer for panel, or 3 actually. Firstly, panel arrangements and tendering. A lot of businesses think that panels and tenders are the way the government procures. It's only about 60% of their procurement spend, I guess. So there are a lot of informal channels to the businesses, particularly smaller businesses, aren't aware of and neglect, and there's a lot of opportunities there that are being missed by particularly small business. Big business get it, they know it, they've got their own procurement teams. When you're going, if you do decide to submit for a panel, a lot of organisations will think, oh, it's really competitive, I'm going to give the best pricing I can and leave our margins really, really fine. Panels don't do that, basically. Unlike when you're applying for a tender, pricing is really, really critical. For panel arrangements, it's certainly not so. They're looking for reputation, your skill set, what problems you're solving, how much value you bring to potential government opportunities, and pricing is nowhere near as important to them. Once you're on the panel, they may negotiate if they want to use you and different things, but don't go really fine with your pricing when you're submitting for a panel arrangement. And the next thing on panels, or the last thing that I want to add from what Andrew had said, is getting on a panel is great. And we've got a lot of clients who get onto those panels and they ring us up and say, celebrating and, hey, cracking the champagne, and we have to bring them back down to earth. The easy part is getting on the panel. It's what you do from there that will actually determine how successful you are in working with government. So a lot of complaints come from businesses saying, I've been on this panel for 2 years and nothing's come out of it, blah, blah, blah. They're waiting for the phone to ring. It ain't going to happen. You need to be proactively looking for decision makers, marketing, have a strategy to get to different decision makers within government, let them know you're on this panel, the problems you solve, and really shouting that from the rooftops. Don't sit back and wait for them to come to you, because rarely will that happen. So with that, I'll hand back over to you, Alex.
Yeah, nice one. Great message. Thanks, Thomas, and a really good segue to Brigid. I might just ask you, Thomas, you could drop a link to the pulse check in the chat for those that are interested in kind of seeing where they're at. If you're a QSEC member, you can jump on, or Social Traders Certified, you can jump on and see the social procurement checklist, which you can either get through the QSEC website or the Social Traders website. And also Thomas has a bit of a pulse check survey that you can go through to kind of see where you're at as well. But yeah, I'll hand over to Brigid to kind of continue that theme of, well, once you're on a panel, then what?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And I was going to say I'm going to start at the end and then go backwards, because I think it's really important to really hone in on this point that being on a panel is something, and it's great, and it can be challenging to get on, and there's all of those intricacies, but it is such a small amount of the task being done. So really it needs hardcore heavy business development and marketing and sales, and it also needs the right sales strategy and techniques. And so I do feel a bit funny kind of starting at the back, but I want to stay on this point while we're on it if I can. One of the things that I have found, so IPA, we're a national recruitment agency, and I'm fortunate, we're a rather large agency, so we do have a person who sits in our head office who helps us with tenders when we're pitching for things like, or we're putting in tenders, or we're pitching to be on panels. So we're fortunate in that respect. We are Social Trader Certified as well, so we're very fortunate in that respect as well. But one of the really main key points that I want to drill home here is that procurement put together the panel, and procurement care about things like social enterprises or local organisations, so Queensland based organisations. Procurement, when they're putting together a panel or they're doing a tender, they're some of their buying factors. when it comes to the actual hiring managers, they typically don't care. So they want to know who you are and what you do. And I think that's a really important point, that sometimes we may focus too much on the fact that we're amazing and we do all these great things for community and we're a social enterprise and we're certified, and the actual hiring managers sitting there saying, I don't care, how can you help me? In my instance, they need staff. They don't care that all of our profits go to the community and help people with the disability. They need staff. So that's what they need to know from me, is that I can provide them with recruitment services and with staff. So it's almost like you've got a two-pronged attack with your sell. Part of your sell to get on the panel is absolutely social enterprise, and here are the amazing things that we do and give back to community, whilst, you know, being this type of organisation. But then once you're on it, it's almost forget about that. Don't talk about Principle 2 in the procurement policy where they talk about social enterprise. Just really hone in on, this is what we do. We're experts in the field. This is where we can help you, where we can add value, or where we can solve your problems. So that's kind of starting at the back. I'm sorry about that. I'll go now and start at the beginning. Like I've said, we're a national recruitment agency. I manage the Brisbane branch here, or Southeast Queensland, and I have done so for about 8 years now. The entire time we have been on the Queensland government panel. It's been an array of different panels or SOAs, and it kind of just means the same. Standing offer arrangement is just their way of saying a panel. And over the years, they have changed from having a very small recruitment and labour hire panel with 22 providers to now they have a large one, which is a general goods and services. So recruitment falls into that, and there's 145 suppliers on the current panel. There's 5 separate categories on this panel. So all sorts of different organisations are on different categories for different elements or different things that they do. We as a recruitment agency, we're on the 5 different categories across the whole of Queensland. And it wholly and solely has saved a number of our businesses or our branches over the years. So we have a fairly large branch network in Queensland. I manage Brisbane. We have Bundaberg, Rockhampton, Mackay, Townsville and Cairns as well. And a lot of those branches in regional areas, they're very small branches, due to obviously the economic footstep out on their doorstep, and so they might be 1 or 2 people in those branches, and the reason that they have, or that they're still there, is because we're on the government panel. So it's it was a beast to get on, especially this most recent one with the 145 suppliers. And Tom, you're right in saying that pricing was not their main motivator. So they went out to all sorts of different organisations and recruitment agencies. Pricing had to be competitive and appropriate, but it certainly wasn't based on price. It was, what can you do, what services you provide, your capability, obviously financials, history, etc. And so it's a competitive panel, but it's certainly not dirt cheap. So now we're on this panel with 145 other suppliers. So we're a very, very, very tiny little drop in the ocean there. There are 3 certified social enterprises on this general goods and services panel. I don't know who the other 2 are. They are recruitment agencies, but I'm not sure who they are. But the panel, being on this panel, has been, I suppose, really vital for some of our smaller offices in the amount of work that they get coming through from that panel. They would not be able to keep the offices running and to keep those staff employed in those areas if we weren't on the panel. But it very much comes down to how we are using the panel and how we work the panel. So fortunately, under the old, so about 2 years ago, they changed it to this huge beast of a general goods and services panel. Prior to that, there were 22 of us recruitment agencies, and we did recruitment and labour hire for office-based staff. Each month we would provide them with reporting, so that's something to be aware of as well. Often you will have to provide reporting, financial reporting and placements and whatever's relevant to your individual organisation. And so each month we would provide reporting, and then they would come back to us and essentially give us a pulse check on our market share based on us and the 21 other suppliers. So when we first started getting that information, we would kind of sit around 10th in terms of market share, which wasn't too bad. So we were happy to be in the top 50%. But after years and years of hardcore, heavy business development, sales, introducing ourselves to every single person who we possibly could, every branch doing it as well, every consultant within every branch. When they finished the reporting, like I say, just about 2 years ago before they changed the panel, we were sitting in second in market share. And that had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that government buyers were just calling us out of the blue because we were on the panel, and had everything to do with us, heavy, hardcore. So I think that's a really, really, really important message, in that it can be daunting. It can be very hard because you can't just simply, you know, Google who a government buyer is or who a decision maker is. So very, very, very hard to find the information. But it's a numbers game and it's a sales game. So my main advice would be, make the sales calls. Once you get on the panel, you've got to make the sales calls and introduce yourself and let them know who you are. And more importantly, the things that you can do, not just the fact that you're a social enterprise. I did want to just share with you very briefly, and I'm open to questions as well, but I thought that I would just share my screen just to show you, and none of this is confidential, but these are all of the departments or agencies, so it's Queensland government, the panel that we're on, but it's also open to other government agencies, stat bodies, etc. So I thought I would just very briefly scroll through this list just to give everybody on the screen an understanding that once you're on a panel, these are all of the different types of buyers who can buy from you, or organizations that you can sell or market yourself to. So big list. I think there's 62 or 63 of them on there in total. Some might have their own arrangements in place and therefore don't need that. But once you've gone through the hoops and you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's and proved yourself to government, then you are able to sell your services to a huge array of organizations. So it's a real benefit there. Probably
amazing.
Unless people have questions.
Great stuff, Bridge. Some really good key messages in there. Great to be, got to be in it to win it. So getting on the panel, as Andrew said, and then once you're in the game, continuing the effort to make sure you're finding the right people and continually marketing services and still competing on a panel. That's, you know, that's the idea of a panel, is there's multiple preferred suppliers. They're not just choosing one. So that's a really good description. Thanks, Bridge. I thought I might just give a quick summary of what social traders are doing at the moment, and why we'd love to see more social enterprises on standing offer arrangements. So those statutory authorities and owned corporations that Bridget was just talking about, and there was 63 in her list, there's about 190 in total. And all of the employees that work in those will have access to the standing offer arrangement. They'll also have access to the social traders portal. So when they want to purchase outside of a standing offer arrangement, they can go to the social traders portal, look at the capability information of social enterprises, and then contact directly. And that can happen. The thresholds of where that can happen is different depending on the department and agency. But it's a great opportunity for government buyers to test new suppliers, new social enterprises, and testing and trying to reduce the risk for a government buyer is a big part of why standing offer arrangements exist. There's been someone else has done the vetting, has done the pre-assessment to make sure that the organisation is cleared to work with government. So getting through that hoop makes it even easier for those that are out in the departments or in the agencies or stat bodies to just go directly to, because all of the information's there, that risk has been removed. The other thing that we're doing at the moment with Queensland Government Procurement is working more in depth with 9 different departments, or actually all departments over the course of 3 years, and looking for assessing what they buy and how much they buy and what the capability of social enterprises are and where that matches up, and trying to promote new opportunities for social enterprises in these supply chains. So we're actively looking to match up certified social enterprises with what government buyers buy. And so often that one of the barriers is, well, we buy everything in that category from an SOA, a standing offer arrangement. So if there aren't any social enterprises on that SOA, then it makes it really difficult. Or if there's only one and there isn't choice, that also isn't a great sign. We want depth and numbers and lots of enterprises on those SOAs to provide those options. It's an objective, a policy aim of the Queensland procurement policy to increase procurement with genuine quality social enterprises. So that's part of the work we're doing, is to try and stimulate that demand inside government and to get out to lots of the business units to try and promote what social enterprises do and how they can find those businesses to work with and how to match up what they need to buy anyway with what the capacity of the social enterprises are. So absolutely be great to see, lots of enterprises that are here today jumping on and looking at the Queensland contract directory, registering on qtenders. One of the key things, if you're looking to work with state government to do, depending on which industry you're in, it's either qtenders or etender, so that you get notified of opportunities as they come up. So this might be a refresh of a panel, it might be a general tender, it might be an expression of interest or different types of market opportunities, but registering on those is really important. And the same at the local government level. For whichever local government you work within, they'll purchase in slightly different ways. You might need to register on that council's website. You could also register as a supplier on the localbuy website, and they also set up panels for all of local government to purchase through that. And if you're on any of those panels across localbuy or state government, not all panels will show a flag or show criteria, that you are a social enterprise, but that's something we're hoping to get across all panels. But certainly on localbuy and on vendor panel, there'll be a flag if you're a certified social enterprise, so that buyers can find you more readily. And I think I just wanted to make the difference or make the difference known between registering as a potential supplier or for updates or for access to qtenders or with your local council is great to make sure that you're informed as opportunities come up, but that's not being a pre-approved supplier. That's registering on a list to get information, and then you'd have to go through a more rigorous process to be accepted onto a panel. And what that process looks like and the requirements and the length of time and effort required to get on each panel will differ depending on the size of spend and the complexity of what it is that they're trying to purchase. So that's a bit of what we're doing and how it fits into what Social Traders is doing with state government and why SOAs are important. Are there any questions from the room before I pick out some names from the room that I can see who might have their own stories to tell? Are there any stories? Are there any questions from the room for any of our panelists? I've been trying to answer questions in the chat as we go through.
Do you want to just read out some of those questions, Alex, so that everybody gets a chance to see them?
Yeah, sure thing. So we started out with, can you tick the box if you're not certified by Social Traders or BC? Can you tick it if you're a member of QSEC? Depends on the department. At the moment, the advice from Queensland Government Procurement is either to be certified with Social Traders or to have a letter from your CPA stating that you do satisfy the definition that they use. But as we said before, if you're a QSEC member, it's free to get certified with Social Traders. So hopefully there's no real barriers to that. Thanks for the plug, Yaz. As we go through, how's a panel different to an SOA? It's not. A standing offer arrangement is just that. It's an arrangement, but a procurement arrangement where there's a standing offer from a supplier that can be picked up as and when required at the business units. It's a comment about making sure that people are aware of the requirements within getting on panels, requirement to provide some financial statements depending on what it is that you're applying for. can young small businesses apply less than 2 years? I'd agree with Lisa, your comment there. Yes, absolutely, you can apply, just making sure that there are enough examples and credibility behind that. Certification helps with that, but talking about who you've worked with before and having those really good customer examples and testimonials is really important. And one of the things that we're trying to do within the big businesses and government that we work with is try and find new, even if they're smaller opportunities, new opportunities for lots of different social enterprises, so that you do get that first reference, especially a government reference, that really helps reduce that risk profile.
And Alex,
hopefully snowball from there.
A really good example of that in our membership is Molfana, who worked really hard at the beginning of COVID to get from 20 employees just doing a very small opportunity through for cleaning. As COVID hit Brisbane City Council buses, they got a very small gig. And a couple of years later, they're up to 300 and something employees doing lots more than just cleaning. They're doing landscape services and a whole bunch of things. So, you know, that's a good example of how small contract sizes can actually make a huge difference to the standing up of a social enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And word of mouth starts to work. So you can talk about your own successes, but also your last client that had a good experience can tell their colleague or friend in a different organisation about what's happened. And Thomas has put his pulse check in there for those that want to do a self-assessment. How do you know who to call? There is a Queensland contracts directory, so there are 470-ish on last look, but you can look up all of those standing offer arrangements. A bit of hard work in that to find where you fit and when they're available and that sort of thing. So you could kind of take the dual approach, registering on qtenders to get notifications as new opportunities come up, the more passive wait and see approach, or as was Andrew's experience, looking through that contracts directory, finding out who the arrangement owner is, and then contacting them directly to hear about when it's going to be refreshed. Some will have discretion to refresh and add suppliers, in an ad hoc fashion, and others won't. Some won't be refreshed for many, many years, as Andrew said, and others are just around the corner. So getting notified or being on the right list to be notified when they come out is really critical. And certainly in sending out SOA refreshes to social enterprises, we do get the feedback from government sometimes that some were registered on qtenders and would have got it anyway, and others weren't. So make sure we remind everyone to be registered in those places, and Brisbane City Council would say the same. You can jump on their website and register as a potential supplier, and they're really actively looking for engaging local social enterprises, which is really encouraging.
Alex, can I ask
sorry.
I was actually, when I said, who do you know who to call? And you've sort of said who and when and where for all the tenders and panels and all that sort of stuff. In terms of what Brigid was talking about, like business development, who do you call saying, hey, I'm on a panel? Where do you even begin with that? Or is that the same? Yeah. That's not the same list, is it?
No, it wouldn't be the same list. And minor plug for social traders courses for certified enterprises. We have a Navigating the Procurement Maze course that you could do. We have a Marketing Your Services in Social Procurement course, online intensive that you could do. And within those, there's small cohort courses that can work through your specific industry and then who might be the buyer within large organisations. So, in terms of training and professional development and those types of things, you'd start within the HR department, I imagine. So, potentially even leaning on other social enterprises, maybe not in a recorded session, but leaning on other social enterprises for some tips about contacts in HR departments and supporting the other social enterprises is a great way to do it. And certainly within our opportunity planning sessions we do with the government buyers, we work through where we've got really good social enterprise capability, and then we talk through, well, how do you as a department buy these services, and who is it in your organisation that controls the levers, like the procurement process, but also makes the decision at the business unit level. And so we get those names, and then we go out and present to those people, provided they'll have us, and then tell them about all of those options that are available to them. Whether they then call those enterprises and buy from them, we kind of only find out when we do the spend analysis at the end of the years, or if the social enterprises call and say, oh, guess who just called? So we're trying to do some of that, while we're, an intermediary, trying to do some of that kind of stimulating demand and business development for social enterprise as a sector, and also kind of recommending specific enterprises that fit as well.
I wanted to quickly jump in there. Leanne, there's a message for us there. Lisa's just popped in that Queensland's government creative services panels holds a Meet the Buyers events, and that happens not just in state government but also in local governments too. So I'd encourage people, if you're in your local area, to jump on your local government page as well. They do often have a spot on their website. There's something like 78 local councils across Queensland, so it's crazy. But they do have Meet the Buyers events regularly there too. And the other thing I wanted to jump in before, I noticed that Sarai from Your Town was on before, but I can't see her in the room now. But we often talk, Alex, about groupings of social enterprises. So when a big tender comes out, what's the opportunities there for smaller social enterprises to band together as a cooperative or as a consortia?
Yeah, and if within government we'd be saying, if you've got social enterprises on your panels, then unbundle that big thing and give the portion that social enterprise can handle through the panel to them directly, and then go to market for the other element of it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Works more with the corporate market that have a little bit more flexibility than the government at the moment. But the other thing, just on those Meet the Buyer events, one piece of advice, because we run networking events where we connect social enterprises with business and government members. One of the things to remember when you go along to those, the person you're talking to might not be the buyer, but they might think about their degrees of separation, and asking inquisitive questions about how they buy and who else you might be able to talk to, and trying to kind of pull the thread to get to the right person at those events is a really good approach, because it's a lottery as to who you're going to be in front of, depending on your industry and your service. But trying to do as much investigation through those networks as possible, and getting them to be able to introduce you to others is a great approach. And so, at least back to your question around consortia, absolutely. I think that when this sort of a room gets together and people can talk to each other about what they're looking to do, and be in the chat and sending direct messages and those sorts of things, and collaborating on what capacity each has, that the really exciting things can come from that. But is kind of the separate. It's probably another session outside of the panel kind of arrangements that we're focusing on today.
Alex, can I just add a little bit to Leanne's question about who to call? Because I find, Leanne and everybody else, that's the hardest thing. Who do you call? If you want to target, I don't know, Coca-Cola, you just Google the CEO of Coca-Cola and you've got his name and you can find his phone number and you make a call. Hey, I'm Brigid. And government is just, it sometimes feels impossible. It really does. And it's about trying everything from every angle. So I second what you say about the events, but recognizing who you meet at the event and who they might know, and always asking who have you got within your network. But then really just trying everything, like the head of procurement, who is not going to be your buyer, but asking the head of procurement who within the organisation will use or buy my services. Can you make an introduction for me? And being really open and honest and saying, can you make some introductions, or can you introduce me to somebody who I have this with my team regularly when they're you know, when I'm banging on them about make more sales calls, you know, get more into Queensland government. Who do I call? Who do I call? For us in recruitment, we'll look on Smart Jobs website, and I know this is just recruitment focused, but that's the only experience that I have, that it might give you a bit of an insight. So we'll look at the Smart Jobs, because that's where Queensland government will advertise all of their roles, and they're permanent roles that they're recruiting themselves. They don't want to hear from an agency, but there's always a person and a phone number, and it's about calling and introducing ourselves to that person, saying, I know you don't want us, but who within your business unit or your work group uses labour hire or works with recruitment agencies, who can you pass us on to? So for me, I find that the key part is to try everything and every angle, but expect that whoever you speak to is not going to be the right person, and just hope that the kind of networks can start to form from there. And then I would also say lean on the other social enterprises. So we ourselves have been working with Queensland government for a long time. We've got lots of great contacts. We've got lots of government departments who we work exclusively with because we've got such good relationships. And I personally would be very happy to introduce anybody else within my network to a hiring manager. And whether or not it's relevant or would get you anywhere, but I'd always be very happy to make some introductions to relevant people. So I just sort of wanted to lean on that point a little bit. It is so hard to know who to call, and often you'll have to make 300 phone calls to get to the right person, but it's really worth the 300 phone calls, like 10 times over, once you can get in, and then you start to develop your own networks.
I also wanted to give a little plug, but I'm just looking for the link here. I can't find it. Maybe Kira, who's on the phone call, might be able to post it. But why we're talking about all this procurement stuff is because we're leaning into next 10 years, we're looking at Olympics and 2032. There will be more and more opportunities that come up through government surrounding the games, and it may not be exactly the games, but we're Alex and I have been working really hard to try and press on the government to increase their spend with social procurement, to look at different options to increase social impact. And as we lead into 2032, we will be having very big conversations about how social procurement can really make a big difference. Regen Brisbane, so Kira's on the line here as well. We're running a series of events to really help to underpin what that looks like. So I'd encourage you to have a look at those next 3 events that are coming up, and then also as we lead into the Social Enterprise World Forum in September, to come along and have a really good chat about what are the different opportunities that are coming up through procurement in the next little while. How do we get ourselves in pole position to take advantage of some of the big approaches that are happening, and how do we help each other to do that? It's not just what we're working in a vacuum. We're all working in this sector to really help to regenerate our communities, to create those linkages. So we really want to have a very purposeful conversation around that.
I just dropped there's a government link where you can register interest in procurement opportunities for the games. So I've just dropped that link into the chat. And for those that have already sold into state government, their supplier awards are open at the moment. So nominations are being called for. So it'd be great to see as many social enterprises that are winning work with Queensland government get celebrated through their awards. Any questions, final questions or comments? One thing I did just think to loop back and might throw to you, Andrew, for a last call if you've got anything, but I was thinking about those connections and the people to network with. There is a social procurement advisor that sits within the Queensland government procurement area, and it's kind of his job, and we support him in this work to know what social enterprises are on SOAs and are looking for work with government. So, you know, I think it's worth reaching out. Social procurement at epw.qld.gov.au from memory, but you can write in consider social procurement into Google and Queensland government, and you can find their website to find Rob's contact details. at the end of your slide, Andrew, it said tell QSEC, tell social traders, and tell Rob, tell government themselves even.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important point. Rob Law and Robert Law, two different people, same names, I think the same department. Yeah, their role is to push social enterprise and social procurement internally. And I know that's been 10, 15 years ago, it was a pretty hard job, but now I'm sure they're flooded with interest across the departments. So yeah, they're absolutely people to connect with. And even if you just wanted to use them as a sounding board as to whether you should become registered. In fact, I think Robert Law, he was the guy who helped me find one of the panels that was open. So yeah, I mean, they've got the finger on the pulse as to what's happening internally. Yeah.
Nice.
Probably nothing else from me, Alex, even though do you want me to dance for 2 minutes, tap dance or something? Or?
Well, I think we're done. So unless there's, I think it doesn't look like there's any more questions, no hands up.
My only question is if Thomas wanted to drop into the, so Thomas, I know you put the pulse check in there. Did you want to give just 30 seconds about, Thomas, what is it that you do? Because I know you're small business and government panels and stuff, but what is it that, because we've heard from what social traders can offer and where to go, but Thomas, what is it that you can do in that space as well?
Yeah, very quickly, we help small businesses to build up their government capability. There's 6 areas the government are looking for from their partners, and we help identify and strengthen those areas for our clients, and we essentially design custom plans. What Brigid would basically summarize, but we know who to call, when to call, and what panels, etc., etc. So we condense that into customized plans for our clients, and it's a step-by-step process. They follow that from there. So that's us. But I did want to add one thing quickly. As of July 1, Queensland government mandated, well, it's not really mandated, but a target set at 30% of all their procurement must come from the small to medium business sector. So that's a $6 billion market. If you're not looking at getting into government now, and there's a lot of incentives in place for small businesses, i.e. less than 19 employees, or sorry, less than 20 employees, you're a small business, heaps of incentives to help get you on these panels and help get you to winning these government contracts. And that's a really, really big market. Not enough small businesses know about this yet, so spread the word. Thank you.
Awesome. And you're at GovReady.com,
yep.
aren't you? Yes,
thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been cutting and pasting out of the chat. Once I've got this recording done, I'll send it to everybody who registered on the Humanitics link, and I'll send you all the links as well that I've been stealing out of the chat. If there are no other questions, that was really good. That was so interesting, so informative. My head's exploding. I've taken lots of notes. But I think that the gist of it is you've got to be ready. You've got to give it a crack. You have to make sure that you're ready and that you've talked to lots of people, but also this isn't a set and forget by the sound of it. It's not, hey, I'm on a panel, I'm just going to sit back and wait for the phone to ring. This sounds like, well, that's just the first step, and now you've really got to start to use that to your advantage to build your business. Alex, Andrew, Thomas, Brigid, Elise, did I forget anybody? I don't think so. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'll put up the links. That was really good. We've got QSEC stories in 2 weeks' time and the storytelling launch. So if anybody does have any requests for topics, if there are things that you really particularly want to learn about, please email me and let me know so that I can either point you towards a webinar we've already done, or I can organise it for the rest of the year. That was really good. So thank you so much, everybody. And if anybody does want to go to the QSEC website, we've got events, we've got web pages. If you missed anything, just email me. I can send you things. All right, lovely people.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks, Anne. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
everyone. Bye.